Hello, welcome to the fourth episode of Just Cuz, the podcast with two cousins where we talk about things we love.
Just 'cause today we are talking about the new Netflix movie Nimona.
Which is just adorable.
Oh,
I love this movie.
absolutely fantastic. It is joining the ranks of Puss in Boots 2, the Shreks, and the Spider-Verse movies into the only movies I will ever show my children.
Yes, I have a very big note at the bottom of my notes page that says, reminds me of Puss in Boots 2,
Yeah,
where
I kept
it's
thinking that while I was
just
watching it.
edgy enough. Where, this is for kids, there's a little blood in it, but, just enough to
hmm
where you're like, whoa, this is
Yeah,
cool.
there was blood in this. I was surprised. I was like, whoa, there's a little like gusher of blood. There were times when it wasn't juice from a juice box.
There were many, many, many moments in this movie where I had to question myself and think, is this made for kids? It definitely is.
Definitely.
But I think it's just the landscape of kids' movies is changing
Yeah.
because kids are more mature than people give them credit
And I
for.
think it's also made for adults. I don't think it's one of those mindless kids movies, sorry, like the Emoji Movie or the Angry Birds movie. I think that's giving kids, like you said, a lot of credit and it's making it for all audiences. It might be the return of the quote unquote family movie that was missing from our film geography for so long. Film landscape. I don't know why I
I
said
don't know
geography.
why it just came to my mind, but there's like a dick joke, and it's so quick that a kid doesn't even realize it happens, but the adults in the room are very
Wait,
humored.
wait, remind me of it. I don't remember.
It's I won't give away too many of the what's going on, but someone's in the shower
Oh my God,
and
yeah.
Nimona says, "Is it? Are you cold?"
Yes. Oh my gosh, I remember that.
And it's just a throwaway line. Like kids have no idea what that is, but adults they get it. And that's how you make a good kids
hmm
show. You make it fun for adults too, and you perhaps give them a lot of themes to think about, which this movie maybe
Definitely
has.
does. If you haven't heard of Nimona or if you haven't seen it, go see it right now on Netflix, even though Netflix is being a dick and not letting me watch it on my TVs because I use my mom's account. And Netflix, I hate you for that. And I had to watch this movie
Yeah,
on
I
my
had to
phone.
sort that out too. Really?
Okay, I watched it on my
Oh, that's a
iPad. I
shame.
started watching it on my phone and then I was like, what am I doing? I have an iPad. So I watched it on that. But
Still not the big screen it was
still
probably meant
not
for.
worth it. Okay. I cannot believe I can't watch Netflix on any of the TVs in my house.
But yeah, Netflix, get your stuff sorted out so that everyone can watch this movie
Exactly.
because they
Because they
should.
should. Okay. We're going to get into spoiler territory here. So if you haven't seen
I'm
Nimona,
assuming,
we
yeah.
strongly encourage you to go watch it. It's only an hour and 45 minutes or something, and it's really, really good.
If you don't have Netflix, get it just for this
Just
movie.
borrow
I'd say
someone
it's worth
else's
it.
Netflix. Screw what they say.
Exactly. All right. Spoilers, because this movie starts out with a text crawl where it's a really cool storybook animation,
hmm
but immediately I was worried
Yeah.
because I was like, "Oh, this is exposition just for the sake of
Okay, well, the
exposition."
thing is that it reminded me a lot of the exposition in Moana at the beginning of Moana, if you remember that. And it was it was very not exposition for exposition's sake, but when world building occurs in a opening exposition scene, I'm always a little worried.
Yes.
Because
In every fantasy movie they have to have this is how the world was
right, in like a
created.
book or on a scroll. Like the thing about with the things that stand out from that, like Shrek, or Shrek doesn't do it for exposition of his own story, and Shrek opens the storybook, and the storybook is like, this is what you all know of fairy tales, and this is how Shrek is going to subvert it by wiping his ass with it. That's good.
Which is how Nimona does it, which is just
Yeah.
perfect. Because again, I was very worried at the beginning of this movie. Those worries were extremely unfounded, though, because later we're getting ahead of ourselves, but it's all
Yeah.
bullshit. It's all lies,
It's
and that's
so
fantastic.
good. It was.
It's
I
amazing.
love when she's just like, question the system, question everything. I love that. Down with the man. Fight
That-
capitalism.
we meet Ballister Blackheart and his hot boyfriend
Hot,
Ambrosia,
hot
which
boyfriend
they just
played by Eugene Lee Yang from the Try Guys.
yeah. I was amazed. I mean, just the fact that they went out and did
I
it,
know.
which
I thought it was gonna
we're
be
we're
like a classic, like, because they set them up in the prologue to be enemies, right? And so
yes.
I was like, oh, they're gonna be enemies. I didn't even think, because I didn't see any promotion for this movie other than what Eugene did, because I watched the Try Guys and I'm not ashamed about it, no matter what face you give me. That's the only promotion I've seen for this movie. I've seen like very few posters and stuff. Maybe I just haven't been getting out.
Yeah.
But
I saw nothing for this
yeah.
movie. I just saw it was out on Netflix and I watched it,
But
which is kind of sad.
it is. You live in a small ass town. There's not going to be that many billboards and advertisement on buses like there are here. There's like advertisements for everything. Um,
Yeah. That is
so
fair.
I haven't seen that much promotion for it, and I had no idea that it was going to have a queer relationship so central um to its plot. Which is so goddamn refreshing, can I say? Because
Oh my god.
usually when there is a queer relationship in a movie, it is shoved in there just to please the gays or just to check a diversity box, and it doesn't
It
matter to the plot at all. This is integral to the plot, and do I
it's
love it? Oh
always
my
a
God.
throwaway character on the side that has like a minute of screen
Hmm.
time. And I'm pointing my finger at Disney, but they're usually the
They're the
people who do
biggest
that.
offenders. Fuck Disney. Sorry.
Whereas this is two main characters, and they originally touched hands, and I was like, oh, we're going to do enemies to lovers. But no, it's later
No,
found out that they used to
it's
date.
lovers to enemies to lovers. It's better than enemies to lovers. It's the best trope.
It's amazing because rather than just like tropes, they're just two people in
Yeah.
love. That's it.
And
And I
they
love that.
struggle the whole movie because they don't want to see each other as the enemy. Um,
Hmm.
and it eventually gets resolved, obviously. But I was really worried there for a second. I was like, I know this is a kids' movie. I know this is gonna get resolved, but it looks like it's in a place where it cannot possibly be resolved. What are they gonna do?
Right? They get down to the wire
Yeah.
with it. And there's a lot of twists and turns in this movie, but the main thing that I want to talk about is the queen and her
Oh
death.
yeah.
It's so quick. I didn't even there's a lot of stuff that just happens quick
Hmm.
in this movie and I barely have time to feel what is happening or understand before like the next thing happens. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing because it really gets the audience feeling what I'm sure the director or the writer wants you to
Yeah.
think.
The movie very much sets itself up as having the prologue be the reciting of the old history by Nimona, who we don't know yet, who later is
Yeah.
we meet as Nimona. Um, and it's the reciting of the old history of the world with Glorith and how she saved everyone from the monsters. And that is set up to be the prologue. And then it enters the story. But what you don't realize until the queen is murdered is that up until that point, it's still pretty much a prologue because the story hasn't
Yeah.
started yet. It doesn't start until you see Nimona deciding to go talk to Braveheart, whatever his first name is.
Ballister.
Ballister, right? Because he kept calling
I
him
love it.
Bal, and I was like, that's such a dumb nickname.
So they originally say his name, and I had to pause the movie, and I looked to my girlfriend, and I was just like, his last name is not Blackheart, right? Because that's what it is, Ballister
Jesus
Blackheart,
Christ, is that why he's
and he's
wearing a
got a
black
scar on
armor?
his eye. Yeah, and for no reason he wears black
Yeah.
armor. That's what I was saying
Just
before.
as a slide,
It's
just as this is my fit, guys. Get with it.
yeah.
Every other
I
knight
mean,
is
yeah, it
wearing
makes
white
sense.
and gold armor, and he's just like, I'm out here wearing black. Everyone thinks that I am going to betray everyone because I'm the only commoner who's ever become a knight. I um I just want to stand out. It was clearly
He just
like
wants to be
it was
cool.
clearly like everyone could decide what armor that they were gonna wear, and he could have decided to wear less conspicuous villainous armor. But he was like, no, you know what? I'm gonna
No,
wear pure obsidian armor.
I'm playing into their hands.
I'm gonna look like I'm from Minecraft wearing netherite armor, and I'm gonna
And you
go
know
in
what?
there and kill the queen. No,
Little 12-year-old me looking at him with his black armor and a scar over his eye, I was like, that's unironically
no, it
cool.
is
I
okay.
love
Even
that.
me at 22 years old thinks that. That's
Yeah.
unironically cool. He is working snapped and
Yes.
I hated myself doing that. But no, that's such a choice. That's such a choice for him to clearly make. And I love that for him. That tells me exactly who he is.
And of course, learning that this was based off of a graphic novel, as soon as I finished the movie, I went to that.
Mhm.
And the designs,
The art is very different.
I'm going to sound I'm going to sound like I'm dissing the comic, but the art is like crude. It looks like I could draw it.
Mhm.
But I do love the designs because it's all back there, not like the black armor and everything, but all the ideas are there.
Mhm.
Like, it's still a good comic, but it's one of those things where I think the movie might have even been translated
Yeah.
better.
I mean that was one of the reasons that I didn't buy the comic because I remember when it came out and I was going to buy it and I looked in it and I saw the artwork and I was like, "Oh, this is a bit crude." I mean, it's not bad art. It's good. It's just I was like, if I'm gonna buy a comic book, I'm not gonna buy this. Sorry.
No, I definitely get
Um,
that. And the action is fluid, but like this is better.
mhm.
And I think the movie is
The
better.
movie was absolutely excellent. Like it was just so picture perfect, especially with the action. Like I can picture it in panels, but I feel like it would just lose so much of its like Nimona specifically fluidity and
Hmm.
it's just the fight scenes in the movie are they're so good. They're
Oh my
excellent.
goodness.
Most of them are framed as chase scenes. It's so much better for that. Oh my God.
It's so incredible. Like we've mentioned fluidity with the comic and the movie, but the way that everything moves in this is so incredible. Right from the get-go, the animation style just makes your jaw drop as soon as you're done with the storybook
Mhm.
intro and we see like the future fantasy
Yeah.
setting and these ships are flying, and I don't even know how to describe the animation other than it looks like a higher budget version of a Netflix show called The Dragon Prince,
Oh,
which
okay.
I saw, didn't love, but it's fun. If you've seen that, you know
I
where like the it's the same look but just higher frame
I
rate,
I
pretty
haven't
much.
seen it, but I was about to read the book. I think I have it here somewhere, but I did not read it yet. But yeah, no, the setting is kind of like Shrek's Far, Far Away meets Big Hero 5, and I love that. It was like Big Hero 6.
Yes.
Whoops.
Yeah,
Big
I
Hero
was gonna
6.
correct you, but then in my mind I was like, who cares?
I do. I
Five,
care. Big
six.
Hero 6.
We'll probably get people screaming at their iPods like, it's Big Hero 6! So maybe I should have
If
corrected
we
you.
have people listening to us with that much passion, I will feel accomplished.
Honestly, yeah.
But no, the setting was so unique and interesting. And I was like, I've never seen a setting where there are knights who have iPhones. I think that's great.
Yeah.
And
Or just the way that that sets up the night setting, but with the communication of modern
yeah,
day. It's so weird. I don't think I've ever seen it before. Like, correct me if I'm wrong,
I
but
I don't recall seeing it, but I think it was, I mean, such a natural way to go for this project. And
hmm.
okay, so anyway, so like Ballinger kills the queen, but he doesn't really kill the queen, and then like his sword explodes and it kills the queen, but
Yeah, the weird
he didn't
laser
want to do
sword.
that. Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird green laser sword. It was rad, but it didn't go with his aesthetic because his aesthetic was black and red. So like a
Yes.
Targaryen. So pick a laser that goes with your aesthetic, man. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't pick the laser. We all know that. Um,
Yeah, and it was obviously the director, the evil
the evil
director.
director.
Because, like, who else is
Right.
it? It's a kid's movie, so it's
It's got to
obvious,
be
but.
the man. In this case, the man isn't a man, the man is a woman. And she sucks. But it's the person who's most in charge. That's the villain. Boo, down with capitalism. Boo, tomato,
Boo!
tomato.
I do like the matriarch society that they set up with like the queen and the director's a
No, I
woman
did like that.
too. That was cool.
And the queen was awesome. She was great, and she was like, anyone can be a hero. What's the movie that's known for that? It's like in the back of my head.
Spider-Verse?
No, never mind. Doesn't matter.
I mean, I just have the "you can wear the mask" line
Oh
stuck
yeah,
in my
there's that
head.
one. It's a lot of movies like that.
Honestly, any superhero movie
Yeah.
made for kids has that
Sky
thing,
High.
to be fair.
Anyone can be a hero.
Yes.
No, Sky High is eugenics utopia. Anyway,
Yeah, you can be a hero if your parents are
Right.
heroes. Sorry, we're off topic.
Queen dead, super sad. She was great.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't clear. Was she Golden Loins? That's a dumb name too.
Golden loins.
Was she Golden Loin's mom, or was he just a descendant of Glorith who's not in line to take the throne?
I have no idea,
Okay.
but my best guess is you're right, or maybe because he didn't know, Ambrosia didn't
Ambrosius,
know,
that's
so I
it,
guess
yeah.
he's not.
He was also like he didn't seem sad enough that like, oh, my mom's dead. And then like Bal wasn't like, oh my god, I like he thinks I killed his mom. He just thinks I killed the queen.
Yeah.
Like that would have been a whole different thing if it was like
Which is still bad,
it's still
but
bad,
yeah,
but it's
objectively
not
that's
as
worse.
personal. It would be way more personal if it's like he thinks you killed his mom and then you cut off his arm, and then that's the makings for lovers to enemies.
Yes, back to lovers because we got to get them
Yes, yes,
happy.
But anyway, okay, so then Nimona sees this all going on the TV screen, and that's the first time we see Nimona, and she decides to go find Ballinger because she says, in her words, he's perfect.
With her,
Her little vampire teeth.
oh my
It's
god.
so cute.
Instantly you get her character just from like that 1 second interaction of her looking at the screen and going, he's
Not
perfect.
just that, from her intro of her walking with her hood down, keeping her face covered, not talking to anyone. That is also very character building, and it's very clear who she is right away. And so she gets there and terrorizes him a little bit, but she doesn't show what makes her Nimona. She doesn't
Yes.
come right out and start showing off herself, which is very telling when you think about later in the movie.
It's definitely a character choice, but I do love how you have no idea who Nimona is. Maybe the trailer revealed it, but I didn't know she was a shapeshifter until like 10 minutes into meeting her character.
I didn't watch the trailer. I've seen the comic before I ever saw this movie. And I looked through it, and I still didn't realize that she was a shapeshifter. And so I was just like, oh, okay. I don't know what I was expecting.
I had no idea this comic existed until this movie came out, which is kind of sad because the writing is incredible for both the movie and the comic. I guess it just hasn't got a lot of marketing in,
Yeah.
small town areas. I don't know.
Or anywhere, really. I mean, I know a lot of people who don't know about it here. I got really excited when she kept just like disappearing near Ballinger. And she was just like, where'd you go? And that I thought that was so funny. I was like, this is again showing me character, showing me exactly who she is. She likes to have fun. She is convinced that Ballinger is a villain and she wants to join him. She's like,
So I have to say it, Ballister.
Ballister. Oh my god, what have I been saying?
We'll get people commenting. Maybe they're that engaged.
What have
I have
I
no
been
idea.
saying? Ballinger? What does that mean? Okay. I'm just gonna stick with Bal because it's way easier.
We were talking about Nimona's introduction. Like again, how I was saying I didn't know she was a shapeshifter. She would just disappear, and I'm like, are you some sort of
Sprite?
fifth
Yeah, like, what
dimensional
do you do?
imp?
Yeah.
Like, what are you?
But it's revealed when Bal tries to go clear his name, gets immediately arrested and thrown in jail, and Nimona's like, I told you so, I'm gonna break you out. And for a while you don't see it. She's just disappearing and reappearing and pulling some weird stunts, and he's like, what is happening? But she breaks him out, and they pass a room full of fucked up, passed out guards, and she's like, they were like this when I got here. That was
It's
excellent. I
like
was like, oh,
it's at that moment where you ask, how
yeah.
powerful
I
is
was like,
she?
is
Like,
she
what is
all
she?
powerful? What is happening right now?
Yeah.
Um, and then you see she's absolutely excellent. She turns into a giant whale and smashes through the entire
Yeah.
1,000-year-old cathedral and destroys everything they hold dear, which I respect.
And she's just amazing. Like, you already know Nimona is going to be a great character the moment she's introduced, but when you realize that she's a shapeshifter and when she has just all the fun with that, oh my god.
Yeah,
It's so much fun to look at, too.
really good. And they do not pull their punches with the shapeshifting. A lot of complaints that I have of lots of characters who are shapeshifters is that oftentimes they restrict it to just human shifting, which is boring.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun for like, things like Secret Invasion, but it's not as interesting if your character's only thing is they're a shifter, right?
Yeah, shapeshifting into a human is only fun when it's horrific. I'm sorry,
No,
go
you're
on.
absolutely right. But a lot of complaints I have with shifters is that they usually shift to an animal and then shift back to human and go back
Yeah.
and forth. Nimona does not fuck with that at all. She's like, I'm gonna shift into whatever I fucking want at any point in time. It's so good. Goes from a rhino, but then there's, like a bird and a wolf and then a huge whale. And it's great. And so anyway, they escape and what happens? They go back to no, they go to try and find the guy, the squire who had the
Oh,
sword, who
yes.
who gave. They're gonna
Who
try
wanted to
to,
give some sort of comment about the sword beforehand, but he couldn't
which he never got to hear because they had to go kill the queen.
because the plot has to happen.
Um, the sequence where they kidnap the squire was just so good. Nimona turns into a little boy, and he,
This horrific little
yeah, we're gonna
boy.
come back to the themes and Ballin, Ballister and Nimona's relationship and the things they talk about. We're gonna come back to that, but I think he keeps like questioning her at this point, questioning her whenever she
Hmm.
um and he's like, you're like, why now? And she's like, I am today. He's just the smallest, cutest little boy, and he has the sweetest voice in the world. And he goes up to the squire to try and lure him into a dark alley, and then just turns into a demon baby. And it's the best thing I've ever seen because
I
Nimona
was laughing so
it was so
much.
good. Nimona is obsessed with causing chaos and and just like breaking stuff. And that was that was just the epitome of that. It was just like, I'm a cute little thing. You don't have to worry about me. I'm the demon spawn. It's so good.
We'll get into it a lot more, like deeper, but Nimona has expected people to be afraid of her, so I feel like she's just grown accustomed to getting amusement out of
Yeah.
that.
Um
Which is kind of sad, but it's also
it
really
was really
funny to see.
And then yeah, they stole a car, they put him in the trunk, they fly away, and it's a flying car, of course. And they question the Esquire after another run-in with Ambrosius, another very on the nose name. Everyone's name is super on the nose except for Nimona.
Beautiful golden-haired Ambrosius.
Ambrosius, Ballister, Blackheart, and Glorith. Very, very subtle names, guys.
And you don't know the evil director's
Yeah.
name? The director. That's it.
She doesn't have a name. She is defined by the job.
Anyway, where were we?
That just got me thinking about Severance. I don't know why. Okay.
Such a great
So
show.
good.
Oh my
So
god.
good.
I just rewatched it. Way off topic, but when is season 2 coming
Oh,
out?
I hope fucking soon. It's real good. Um,
Anyway.
um, so okay, the Squire goes, yeah, this is what I was trying to show you before. I didn't fuck with your sword, but I did see something, and he has a recording of him messing around with the suit and the suit of armor, and someone comes in and switches the swords, and lo and behold, it's the evil director.
It's Harmony Cobell.
Harmony Korman, yeah, defined by the job. Bal's immediate urge is to go, I'm gonna go tell Ambrosius about this. I'm gonna show him this video, and everything's gonna be okay. But Nimona says, this is where you really start loving the movie, because Nimona says, no, you should not do that. That's not gonna change anything. It's just gonna reinstate the system. You need to question everything. You need to question
Yes.
this wall that's around our city. Is there any bad things even out there? And I'm like, girl, okay. This is amazing.
I'm pretty confident that wall subplot isn't in the comic, and it's just kind of another cliche to add to the list, but I love it so
I think it
much
really works.
because it just, again, it adds to the list of sub themes where it's just like, do not trust the system that has control over your life, because they do have control, and they're probably not doing too great stuff if they've put you inside of a wall.
It says, she says, do you even know what's out there? And he says, no, no one does, because I don't have a death wish. No one's ever been out there. And she says, so maybe there's nothing.
Just one of the many things in this movie that are done way better than it deserves to be done.
Exactly. And it's a really good message for children to hear. Like, question authority. Like, obviously lots of kids movies say that, but they don't often mean it. They don't often mean
No.
question authority and tear down the system if it's corrupt, because they don't want you to tear down the system, because the people making the movie are the system. And this movie says, no, tear it the fuck down. It's not good for you.
And this movie has a lot of things that are right in front of your face, such as a character who is a shapeshifter. But there's a lot of things that are also really, really subtle, like that. How, you want to question your reality. You could either shove that in a kid's face and they're not really going to get it, or you can subconsciously get them to have that idea, incept it into their brain, like Leonardo DiCaprio.
You gotta go, what, 4 layers deep? Anyway, Bal goes to show the video to Ambrosius, and he's like, look, this is the proof. And before he can play the video, the director yells, he's got a weapon. And the asshole white guy, who I don't care about his name, he was in this also.
Oh.
He's
I was just going to call him Beck Bennett Knight, because that's who he's voiced
okay.
by.
He's been in it he's been in the whole movie, but I haven't mentioned him because he sucks. No, he's like a good character and he's funny, but like he sucks as a person.
But his character point is, I'm annoying.
He shoots a weaponized arrow.
I was gonna say gun,
no, it was
but
an arrow.
it's like
I was
a
trying to think
crossbow.
of the real.
It's like a machine gun crossbow.
Yeah, it was like a tech arrow, like a Arrowverse arrow.
Like a bolt.
Yeah, I don't know. This is dumb. We should stop talking about it.
A boxing glove arrow.
A really high tech arrow. He shoots it at the phone, and the phone is shot by an arrow, so it doesn't work anymore.
No more video or
And-
no more proof.
Then they get into a big fight, and it's way better than the first one. Really good. I mean, they're different. They're very different, but it's so good. And Nimona is beating everybody up. It's going really well until a car coming to there, it bled over into the town where there was innocent people, right? And there was a car, and it was spinning out of control, and it was about to hit this child. And Nimona stops it with her tail. She's a big dragon at that point, and she stops it with her tail, and she saves the little girl. And then the little girl looks scared, so she turns into a little girl to console the little girl and be like, don't worry, it's okay, I'm a friend. And the little girl picks up a sword and calls her a monster. And that
Oof.
fucking broke me. Oh my god. It broke Nimona too. But I was like, oh god, no.
A little peek behind the curtain, but as I was watching this, that's the scene where I paused it and texted you and told you we need to review this movie on this podcast.
Awesome. I'm so glad that was the scene.
Because I was having a lot of fun, but I didn't think it was going to be incredible until that scene. And pretty much everything after that moment is so well written. Not to discount everything beforehand, but it's more about fun.
Yeah.
Whereas now we're really delving into the themes of the movie.
And it was just absolutely incredible from here on out. Like, they go back, Nimona and Bao.
Is this where Nimona is shot with an arrow, or is that
Oh, that was
beforehand?
before. That was when they kidnapped the squire. Yeah, she was shot with an
I thought
arrow.
that was also a good
Yeah,
scene,
that
where
was
she's
really
just like,
good.
I'm okay.
She
I
was
don't care.
she didn't react to the pain because she says she was so used to pain and people hurting her. And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my God, what?" Yeah, at this point we don't know that she's thousands of years old and lonely.
Yeah.
We know she's lonely, but
Ooh.
um
Yeah, we can
right.
guess. I can't think of any scene to talk about in the middle of what happens next where what we think is Ambrosia comes up to confront the director.
Oh yeah.
And
I can. Hold on.
that,
Wait. Well, first of all, Bao can tell that something's wrong with Nimona, and she's really upset. It really gets to her, that girl being so scared of her and calling her a monster. And not the fact that the girl was mad at her, but the fact that the girl is so young and they teach children that young to hate things that are different. She says that exact thing, and she says to hate anything that is different from them and to pick up a sword and kill it. And I'm the monster?
she's so inundated into that
Yeah.
propaganda. It's ridiculous, but it's so real because that stuff is
Yeah,
real.
and their whole world is shaped by it. Their breakfast cereals, their adverts, their knights, their rulers of their kingdom. And you know, when you think about how indebted into their world that kind of thinking is, you start to look at our world. What are our children learning from our crap?
Yeah, the heroes are the people that everyone look up to and want to be, and when your heroes are the people that, kill monsters, that's what you want to do.
That's what you want to do, and the monsters are the villains, no matter what.
And we'll talk about monsters in
Yeah.
general, but yeah, after that scene and you get that heart-wrenching just dialogue about how Nimona just underneath it all, everyone she believes is afraid of
Yeah.
her, which is just
And that's when she
horrible.
says that line that definitely comes back into play later when she says, I don't know what's worse, the fact that everyone in this city wants to put a sword through my heart, or the fact that half the time I just want to let them. And God
Yeah,
damn it. Ugh, I think that's probably where I
that
started the
hurts.
tears. I definitely cried watching this movie.
Oh, I cried.
Um, but I was like, no, bitch, no, stop. You're like so little. Like Nimona is she's obviously not little. She's very old, but she takes the form of a child most of the time. You just never want to hear those words come out of a child's mouth.
It's rough.
Yeah.
And there's many more rough moments. I'm getting ahead of myself, but when they kind of have that similar interaction to, like, what is it, Soul, where Jamie Foxx is talking to Tina Fey, and Tina Fey is just the giant smoke monster, and Jamie Foxx is like trying to talk her down. It really reminded me of that, and that's where I was just in
The movie
tears.
Soul? Tina Fey was in that?
Am I thinking of the right movie?
Don't know.
Where the
Yeah, the
animated
Pixar
one?
movie Soul?
Yeah.
I had no idea that was Tina Fey. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
she was the one Jamie Foxx
Yeah.
is trying to
Okay, you
teach.
learn something new every day. I didn't know that was Tina Fey. Wow. Uh, anyway, that's a good
But
movie.
anyway, yeah, fantastic movie.
Um,
Again, made me
yeah.
cry, and pretty much the same exact reason why it made me
Yeah.
cry. And it's just this broken soul trying to be fixed by someone else, even though it's an impossible
Yeah.
task to fix that broken soul.
Well, anyway, sorry, not that's a
Yeah,
terrible
anyway.
segue, but like, so Nimona and Val decide to, they do this way quicker than I expected. Like, it is, they decide to prove that the director killed the queen. And they just
Yes.
decide that. And the next scene is them enacting their plan. But you don't realize it at first because the scene starts and it's the director sitting in her chair and Ambrosius comes in and talks to her in a very Ambrosius way. And nothing is wrong at all. And you're like, okay, this is the next scene. And then the director stabs and she confesses and she tells him everything, her whole evil monologue, and then she stabs Ambrosius through the stomach, and you're like, what? Oh my God, I wasn't expecting him to die. No. And then he goes like this, he goes and you're like, what? I know
It's
this
the
is
most
I
overacting
know this yeah,
I've ever
I know this is a
seen.
podcast and you guys couldn't see me, but I looked absolutely demented when I did that. Uh,
She had her hands up at her side.
like a makes noises like a choking pterodactyl. And
Yes.
um then you're like, "Wait a second. What is going on here?"
Immediately when the overacting
Yeah, I was
starts,
like
I was thinking, this
I
isn't
know,
real.
right? I was
What's
like, this
going
can't be
on?
really happening. What? I was like, why'd they make that funny? He's clearly dying. He has a sword through
Yeah.
his abdomen.
This is meant to be
Yeah.
serious.
I was like, this is a weird choice to take in a kids movie. And then the next time it happens, I'm like, oh my god, that's Nimona. That is not Ambrosius. It's Nimona pretending to be Ambrosius. And
See, my mind went in a completely different direction. I knew it wasn't Ambrosius, but I had no idea that it was Nimona. I just knew that it could not, like, 110% be Ambrosius just because him and the main character hadn't kissed yet. And I was like, this would be the movie where they do it
it's like he
right and they
can't
kiss
die.
in the
No,
end.
I was like, he can't die right here. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
No, I was like,
they have to have their
I was
happy
like,
ending.
absolutely, he's not dying here. Something is happening. And when the first, fake death noises started happening, I was like, oh, is this how they're telling us that this is not a real death? Does he have some sort of armor? But by the second time, I realized that it was Nimona. And then Ballister, I almost said it again. Ballister comes in and he's like, oh, we recorded the whole thing. And then the two of them are just like, oh, the two of them being Ballister and Nimona are all buddy buddy, and then they leap
Yeah.
off the building together and they fly away, and it's great. And then they upload it to the internet and tell everyone the director killed the queen, and they have a huge dance party where Nimona is a shark, and it's the best thing ever. uh, oh yeah, Nimona had this line earlier that I absolutely adored when he was
I was gonna bring
he was
that
just
up.
like he was like, what's happening? You're a girl. And then she's like, nope. And then she turns into a shark and she's like, I'm a shark. And she just like bites at it. And it's so funny every single time.
That perfectly encapsulates her
Yeah.
character. Just
It
that
was
one line.
excellent. They have a shark dance party and they take a picture with his head inside the shark's mouth.
I knew this wouldn't work out simply because they can just say she's a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
She's been messing with
Yeah.
us, which they do.
It's the easiest trick in the book of shapeshifting. If you want to blame something on a shapeshifter, all you have to say is, you can't trust them. They're a shapeshifter. Anyone could be them.
And then all the townspeople go, we can't trust her? Oh
Quick,
no.
get your torches, get your pitchforks.
Which is where the movie is going because through a series of events, Ambrosius is convinced to talk to Ballister to get rid of Nimona.
They
Because
find
that's what the director
yeah, they
wants.
find the director. Well, he goes to arrest the director, but she gives him this ancient scroll that we don't see what it is, and then it changes his mind and he doesn't. Ambrosius, in the next scene or whatever, shows that scroll to Bal, and it's a picture of a giant dragon monster destroying a town, and inside of the monster is a girl, and it's Nimona.
And this scroll is the storybook that we saw in the beginning.
Yes.
The lies that
Glorith.
Lillian.
Just
Glorith.
glory with a TH at the end.
It was so easy, and I went the furthest route possible. Whoever she is, yeah, she just
The
lied
blonde
about
bitch.
killing
Alright.
this one monster.
We're told in a little bit. Does not happen. It is a classic instance of distorting history, of the winners write the history books. It's clearly not what happened. Basically, this makes Bal turn on Nimona, even though they just had that awesome rad dance party together. I would never turn on someone I had a dance party with, but that's just me.
Side note, in that dance party when she breathes fire, and
Oh my
at
God,
first Ballister's surprised, and then he just goes, metal.
Yeah,
I love
because
that.
it
Oh my
goes back
God.
to their conversations on the train and their conversation in the alleyway. Like, we'll talk about all that in
Yes.
a bit, but yeah, he has fully accepted her. Not that it was
For who she
Yeah.
is.
and not that it was on him to accept her, but she wanted him to accept her. So, and it's really upsetting to see him turn so easily. But it's the classic, like we were saying with the shapeshifters. That's how it goes.
I think like fully believing that Nimona is the monster from the fairy tale, he goes back to the lair
And confronts
and
her.
they
Yeah.
have that one last spat, and that's
It
rough to
was really
watch.
heartbreaking. And Nimona leaves. She runs away because Ambrosius comes to arrest her. Bal didn't set him up, but he followed. Ambrosius followed him. And so she runs away and she comes across Glorith's old well, which Nimona had alluded to earlier as a joke, as not a real story that she was telling Bal. But
And we forgot to mention that when she starts telling that story, it's like, oh, are we
oh
finally
yeah, it
getting.
was
I mean, it's kind of lazy exposition, but we're finally getting her
yeah.
story. And then, no.
Yeah, they were on the train and he was like, "What are you?" And she keeps saying, "I'm Nimona," but he doesn't take that as an answer. So she starts to tell him this story, and it's a little girl who is so separate from the animals, and one day she goes to a wishing well and she wishes, and then she says and she wishes that people would stop asking her stupid questions on trains. And it was great, and it had this whole animation going along with it, because at first, like you said, you think it's some lazy backstory exposition, but it's not. It's hilarious.
There's a little bit of truth in that because, yeah, the well is part of
Yeah,
it.
she used a location that she knew. So she comes across the well and she turns into the same little girl that she turned into to greet the other little girl from the fight before. We get her heartbreaking backstory.
It really, really hurts to see all this because it's the exact same thing that Nimona's been dealing with the entire movie, where she's just trying to make a friend, and she does in Glorith.
Yeah.
But
She is this ancient eldritch being, not horror, not
yeah,
eldritch horror, but she is this ancient being that is alone and can shift into any body. And she tries with the birds, she tries with the fishes, she tries with the deer, and nobody wants to be her friend. She finally meets a little girl and becomes friends with that little girl.
and they are friends for a little
Yeah.
bit. And it's so much fun to watch because Nimona's happy, like genuinely happy.
And Glorith, who that little girl is, accepts Nimona for her shapeshifting abilities, just like Bal eventually did. Then her parents see her playing with a giant grizzly bear, which I would love to see my child playing with. But it's a pink grizzly bear, like there could be worse things. Uh,
Yeah.
but
It's clearly not a natural being,
right.
but still, like, the kid's clearly having
Yeah, and
fun.
Nimona turns back into a human to, be like, oh, don't worry, I wasn't gonna hurt your child as a grizzly bear, don't worry. And the entire town turns on her and calls her a monster. And they attack her, and in their attack of her, one of them accidentally knocks over a bunch of torches into a pile of hay, and it lights the whole town on fire.
And Nimona protects herself for like half a
Yeah.
second because she doesn't want to get
All she does is
burned.
protect herself. She does not lash out at anyone. She's just defending herself. And Glorith picks up the toy sword that they were playing with and tells her to go back into the shadows from whence she came. And that's the end of the flashback. That is the story that the myth of this entire society is built on. When all we've heard is that Glorith was a fierce adult warrior who defeated the most terrible monsters the world has ever known.
Whereas she just told a little girl to fuck
Yeah,
off.
it's really sad. But like
Yeah.
I said, history is written by the winners, so that's what their history becomes. That mixed with the same thing happening to her with Ballister, it's too much for her to take, and she hops off.
Yeah, she just becomes the monster that everyone already thinks she
Yeah.
is.
Not on purpose. It's very clear it's out of pain. She becomes this big,
Oh,
swirling,
yeah.
black, shadowy monster. There's none of the happy, cheerful pink Nimona left.
I don't even think she's in control of herself at that point. Like, she might be. I fully believe that she would destroy the city if she had a choice
I don't
to.
I don't
But
think so. I think that she was in control, and I think she from that point, I think she wanted to die. I think that was a suicide attempt, and she was
yeah,
walking,
with the
it's very
sword.
clearly, yeah, she was walking towards from the well, where she was. You could see Glorith, adult Glorith's huge statue with a huge sword pointed at the monster to kill it, to defend her city. Nimona, I don't think she's really attacking the city. I think she's just walking towards the sword, and everyone attacks her and pushing her and shooting at her, and she's falling and hitting buildings. And then she
Hmm.
sees the advert on the TV where it says it's for cereal.
It's
It's
some
for
kids, like,
kids
yeah, killing
cereal or
monsters.
toys or something, and it's like, look, I'm a hero killing monsters too, and that gets her mad, and she destroys the TV. She walks to the sword and she tries to kill herself. She tries to run herself through with the sword. It's very sad.
Yeah. For a kids movie, it is very
Yeah,
real. And I was surprised they went that far.
definitely, but I was very glad because it was very good.
Oh, yeah.
And Ballister stops her.
How did he get up to the sword? I don't care, because it's a
Doesn't
really
matter.
emotional moment.
Doesn't matter. He apologizes, definitely. I don't remember exactly what he says, but they make up, and Nimona turns back into herself because I think he says I see you,
That's what it
which is
is.
really
Because
good.
that was the line that had me in
Yeah, no,
absolute
I was gone.
tears.
I was gone. In that moment, Golden Loin, Ambrosius, also realized that the director was wrong and what they were doing is bad. Nimona takes down the director, and it's a huge,
Hmm.
big celebration. They break the wall, and it's a happy ending. It's really good.
All is well.
But Nimona dies. Like, she just disappears and she's gone after stopping the big missile that the director was trying to blow up the city with.
Just for a picture in your mind, just imagine. I'm sure you had a very similar time watching it, but I was in tears, just bawling my eyes out. Nimona takes that bullet or crossbow bolt or whatever it is, and she's dying, and I'm just like, no, this is not happening.
No, it's
No,
not happening.
she's not
She's not
dead.
dead. But then she like fully like fades away, and then her essence like just disappears. And I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
god, she's actually dead. What the fuck?
Still, I was like, no,
And then it cuts to the
no.
next scene, and Ballister's like, this isn't the kind of place where we get happy endings. And I was like, what? No! He and his boyfriend are back together, so that is a happy ending, but Nimona's fucking dead, guys.
But then
Yes,
he goes back to his lair, cleans up a
yeah.
bit, puts up some pictures, and then you see like the pink glow behind him, and you just hear, "Hey,
And then he
boss."
goes, what the?
Movie ends.
And then the movie ends. Like in the Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yep.
It's the same ending beat. I love that. Right on the curse word.
We'll obviously get into Nimona's character, but there is no sequel. Like, I picked up the comic because I wanted to see more of this story. And the story ends with at the same point with the
Yeah.
comic. It ends even like slightly different, but
I don't think it needs any more. I mean, I would love to see more, but I don't want there to be more just so that it gets ruined, you know?
no. In my heart of hearts, I want this to be the first of a trilogy. But if this movie is one and done, it would probably be all the better for it.
I think that the themes and the message are so well balanced in the story, and they're so succinct, and I don't think they need more time to explore this message, these
Yeah.
characters. I think we have a perfectly good idea of who they are and what they wanted, and they got what they wanted. Nimona was finally accepted by the whole city, by everybody. And, you know, if this was the real world, we would say, will that last? Will she shift into one more thing and then they'll immediately turn on her again? Probably. But this is a kid's movie, and I don't want to think about that.
Yeah. And it's a
Yeah.
fantasy. They got the happy ending.
And I don't think we would need another movie, because what other theme is there to explore? It would be the same thing again, like many sequels to kids movies, or just sequels to any movies, and it would just be not as good as the first one.
Yeah. Unless the author or director or writer has something to say, yeah, please don't make a second movie because it is
I just don't think it
incredible.
needs it. I think it's a perfect movie. There are a few movies I say
Oh
about
yeah.
that. I think it's a perfect movie.
I watched this the first time and I've yet to even watch it a second time. I definitely will, but I thought there was some pacing issues. But again, without even watching it again, only thinking about it, I think that might have just been first watch things happening really really quickly and I'm just trying to understand them. But again, I don't think that's even an issue if you think about it because it's a kids movie. Things have to happen quickly and just very very one after
I
another.
like that this wasn't a 2.5 hour slog origin story
No.
bullshit. It was quick. It was like what, an hour and 45 minutes or something. It was
Yeah.
it was quick. It was great. Every scene had a purpose. I loved it.
No, yeah, it was
Yeah.
incredible. And the animation was incredible too. We've barely talked about
Hmm.
that, but it's just beautiful. Lighting is beautiful in this
Yes. Oh
movie.
my gosh. I think we should talk about Nimona.
Yes, let's get into Nimona because at first I was questioning whether she was the only monster out there. But after just even a little bit of thought, I think she has to be because just to coincide with the themes of her character, she'd have to be alone for all
Yeah,
that
she's
time.
the only monster. She is a lonely creature, which is very sad. And she is eternal and she is everything.
Which begs the question, what is
I
she?
don't,
Is she
she is
like
Nimona. I think you're missing the
yeah,
point.
yes. You're right. But was she created with the earth? Like is she that old?
I don't know.
Did a god create
I
her?
don't know. Honestly, like, I think those are questions to ask in different universes. I think in this one, it doesn't matter, and I think that's the point of her. Don't get me wrong, I love asking those kinds of questions. I'm like, I'll get into deep lore of anything, but I think the point of Nimona is that she's just her. Because, if we're getting into Nimona, the big theme of Nimona is that she's not a shapeshifter. She is a queer person. She is an analogy for a queer
Yes.
person, probably a trans
100%.
or non-binary or gender fluid person. Um,
Which brings up the point, and I just want to be very careful with how I say this. When I question what she is, what her origins are, and when I even say Nimona is a little girl or I label her as
yeah,
a
or
little
even
girl, we're
using the
talking about like the
pronouns
fictional
yeah.
character. Like she is a very very clear analogy for queer people and trans people. When you look at her original little girl form, you think about how that carried off into her later decisions of just constantly shapeshifting because she doesn't want to be that little girl.
Yeah. It's not because she doesn't want to be that little girl. It's because she's not. She is that little girl, but
Sometimes.
she's also everything else. Yeah.
Again, we go back to the line, I'm not a little girl,
I'm a
I'm a
shark.
shark.
Yeah. It's like, you're a little boy now. I am today. That is that is Nimona.
That is perfect, yeah.
Great representation for a gender fluid character, I think. There's only one other gender fluid character that has had such success, and that is Alex from the Magnus Chase books. And I love Alex
She pulls
Sierra.
out the book
Yes.
right behind her
Yes.
on the
Yeah, I
bookshelf.
didn't even plan that. It's just perfect.
But I genuinely can't think of any other, not even non-binary characters, but just gender fluid characters that are handled as well as
I just
Nimona.
told you, Alex Fierro. Alex Fierro from the Magnus
I,
Chase
I need
books.
to read the rest of the Rick Riordan series because I stopped early in that.
They're very good. That is the only other handling of a gender fluid character that I've ever seen as well as this one. Where it's very different because Alex is not the main character of this story. So Nimona being the main character, even though the story is, centered around Ballister, Nimona's the main character. Like, the plot is centered around Ballister,
Yeah.
but Nimona's the main character because it's all about her. And
Yeah, the big things that happen because of Nimona and they happen to Nimona.
yes, it leaves so much more room to explore the themes and the messaging and just who she is as a character and how she sees herself. And I use the pronouns she because she presents as a little girl most of the time. But when she's not, she's not. When she's a little boy, he's a little boy. And he's a little demon. And I love it.
And she just lives her life day to
Yeah.
day. It's like she's making the decision whenever she kind of feels
Yeah.
like it, which is perfect.
There's not much that we can say that they don't say in the movie because they cover it really, really well. Like Ballister's first conversation with Nimona in the train about her shape shifting. She gives that story because he asks, "What are you? Where did you come from?"
And she's like, I'm
Yeah,
Nimona.
she says, "What are you? I'm Nimona. Who are you? I'm Nimona." That's always her answer. But then he says, "How did you get like this?" And she starts telling him that bullshit story, and it ends with, I wish for people not to ask me stupid questions." And that is the perfect sentiment, I think, because it is a stupid question. How did you get like this? Nobody fucking knows how they got like anything. They just are. Leave them alone.
Yeah, they just woke up one day and figured, oh, this is like how I am.
This is me.
Like
Get over
this is
it.
my true
Yeah.
self. And even the way that this movie combats, because obviously Nimona needs the acknowledgement from others, because she strives for that so much. No matter how much she doesn't want to accept the fact that she needs it, like she does.
Because, you know why? Because she's a shapeshifter, but she's human.
Yep, and that's so
In
real.
all metaphorical meanings of the word. Maybe not actually she's not human, but she's human for all intents and purposes, and humans need each other. And they don't want to be ostracized from society and separated out by a wall, you know? And demonized against an entire history of people, you know?
Yeah, and Nimona seeks out Ballister because he'd already been villainized. So she was like, oh yeah, he's perfect. He can be like my
Yeah,
community.
he
and
asks
we can...
her at one point, "Why are you helping me?" And she says, "Because everybody hates you too." And
Yeah.
that's just so telling. That's how communities are built, am I right?
So yeah, no matter who you are, you need communication and acknowledgement.
Yeah, you need.
No matter
you
how
need
special
people.
you are.
People need people. It's true. Even if you're an introvert, like me.
Yep.
I still need people.
And me.
Yes, like us. You still need people. There's one scene where we touched on it briefly earlier where Nimona gets the arrow in her leg and Ballister asks her, "Does it hurt?" And she says, "It feels like a stab in my leg." But then he's like, "No, I mean
Yeah.
the shape shifting. Does it hurt?" And she says, "It feels worse when I don't do it. It feels like that feeling right before a sneeze. Like everything
Yep.
in my body is on edge. And then I shift and I'm free." Or she says, "I change."
I'm so glad you
She
brought
says,
that up.
"Then I change and I'm free." And what more is there to say?
I completely forgot about that line. And yet again, I feel like I've said this a million times. That's another line that perfectly encapsulates her character. Just in one line, they tell you everything you need to know about her. And they do that more than a few times. With her being a shark, with her being a little boy. It's the writing is so well done in this movie. It almost amazes me just how blessed this movie is with its
It
choices.
was really good. I don't know who wrote it, but it's if I had a hat, I'd take it off for them.
Yes.
They did a really good job, and Chloe Grace Moretz did an excellent job as Nimona.
And Riz Ahmed as
Oh
Barristan.
my god, yes,
He was
so
perfect.
good. I thought all the voice actors were really good.
And there wasn't even a lot of voices in this
Yeah,
movie.
there was really not. There was really very few
No.
characters, and it still felt like a really cohesive, full world.
Yeah, you
That's
gotta
a talent.
feel full. Couldn't even say
heard
that.
it.
You got a real full look at the kingdom. I guess I'll keep that in. So, I feel like we've perfectly reviewed Nimona. Obviously, if you heard all those spoilers, like, still go watch it. It's a great, fun time.
If you hadn't seen it and decided to listen to us yap about it for this long, you should just go see
like
it.
trust us, the animation, you can't describe how beautiful it is without just like, you could just go watch it and that's much better. Like, go to Netflix, go watch it. But what I also wanted to talk, probably pretty shortly, like 10-15 minutes, about animation in general, because I feel like we are in a new age, or just we are in that transitional period between just classic 3D CG animation like a Pixar movie and new different styles such as like the Spider-Verse style or this new, I don't even know how to describe, cell shaded. Was that how Nimona looked?
It
Like
did.
not
I mean,
quite.
I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to be an animation expert, but it looked very different from a lot of
Hmm.
the animated movies that have come out in recent years, like you've said. And I think for a long time, when that 3D animation came out and was, the new hot thing, everyone was doing it. It was very, it set the bar. It set the, not the bar, it set the tone. It set the tone for these movies, and everyone decided to do the same thing. They decided to use the same animation style, and it got very boring very quickly. All the movies look the
Hmm.
same. That's why all of those theories exist. That's why the Pixar theory and the DreamWorks theory and whatever other freaking theory exists. Why they're all in the same universe,
Hmm.
because they all look exactly the same as each other.
It's a tenuous link, but yeah, they can make that link because they look exactly the
Yeah.
same.
And I mean, the Pizza Planet truck is in all those movies, so maybe it is the same universe,
Yes.
but
And that's not to discount
no,
anything.
it's
I think
beautiful
recently
animation.
Pixar's put out Inside Out, which is the exact same animation as always, but I think that movie's amazing. Or
Yeah.
even
And even
Soul,
and
same animation style. It's
yeah, and
beautiful.
Elemental looks beautiful. I haven't seen it, but it looks beautiful.
I haven't seen Elemental either,
Um,
but I'm sure it's also a really good movie because that's the standard of
yeah.
Pixar.
And they're
It's like MCU. You know you're going to have a fun time at the very
Yeah.
least.
And more recently, they're taking more risks, which is what we're leading into.
Hmm.
I think things like Nimona, things like Puss in Boots 2, things like the Spider-Verse movies are
Yes.
taking more risks, not just with their storylines and themes, but with their animation styles. And it's really paying off.
I didn't even think of it in that phrase, but I think that's the best way to put it is taking risks. Like that's what storytellers in general, like forget animation. That's what we need to do to keep movies not just inventive but also
To keep them
fun. Because
fresh.
otherwise why do people go to
Yeah, we
movies?
don't want to see the same thing we've already seen a million times. Like, that's what I was saying. For so long, the 3D animation models were the industry standard. I think that's a better way of saying it. They
Hmm.
were just what everyone did, and then people got tired of it. They were like, oh, that old 2D animation, oh, we don't do that anymore, we're sophisticated, we do 3D animation. And 2D
Yeah.
animation is a completely different art form. It's art. It's not just a way to churn out the machine to get more money from children's parents, it's it's an art form in and of itself, and it has beautiful, beautiful things to offer. And
I completely forgot its name, but there was an Apple Plus movie. It was called like Werewalkers or Shape Walkers or God, I'm butchering
doesn't ring
it,
a
but it
bell.
was a really cool looking 2D animation movie. And they need to do more stuff like that. Like just make stuff 2D. Sure, you can make a 3D animated movie every now and again because I want to see that again. It's a really cool
Don't get
look,
me
but
wrong.
I want to see
Yeah, don't get me
everything.
wrong. 3D animation is cool, but it doesn't need to completely eclipse all animation styles. There's lots
No.
of different things. Stop motion animation, amazing. What? The Nightmare Before Christmas is one of the most classic movies of all time. And
Hmm.
people watch it twice a year. How many times can you say that? There aren't that many movies you watch twice a year for special occasions.
No.
And, Coraline, the Corpse Bride, they're amazing.
We need to have an episode about that studio. I think they're
Yes.
Lakai or Leica.
Yes.
That studio's amazing.
Absolutely.
Every movie they've put out,
So good.
gold.
That's why I get really frustrated when in the Academy Awards, like, not that I put much stock into the Academy Awards, but in the Academy Awards, there's one category and it says Best Animated Movie. And that is bullshit. Animated movies
Yeah.
are not a genre of movies like best drama or best comedy. It is a different art style. It should have its own awards show because there are animated comedies, animated dramas, there are animated shorts, there's different types of animation, stop motion animation, 2D animation, 3D animation. They're very different. and they take so much work.
I was going to bring up just put it in the award show, like just make them regular movies. But I think having its own award show would even bring a lot of awareness to animation and a lot of the work that goes into animation. Because it's a double-edged sword where every frame you have to work on. So you could put a lot of work or a little bit of work into it. So every frame can be a masterpiece, or it can just be a forgettable moment. Like it's the animator's choice.
Exactly. I think it deserves its own recognition, its own type of show.
Absolutely.
Like those awards, they are, we could say a lot about them, but they
honestly forget award shows.
But
they're great for recognition.
They're important in the industry because the people who win them or get nominated, or the movies themselves, it gives them leverage. It gives them leverage to get more jobs, to make more movies, to get more of an
It really
audience.
informs what's coming next in the next 5 years.
And to get more recognition for animated movies is something that is long overdue, especially because so much of our world is going further into that direction. Like, not our world, our entertainment media. There's so many more animated movies that can be produced now than could have been in the past. And so many newer ideas and interesting things. But that also goes with,
studios learning the wrong lesson.
I was gonna say studios abusing their visual artists. That's a big problem.
We could talk about that, because I think, and I'm no expert in this issue, but the one thing that I see as causing the problem more often than not is whatever creator or person in charge deciding that they want to change an idea late in the game. And that happened with the Across the Spider-Verse, which is why the third movie has been delayed. It happened with Thor: Love and Thunder. I know for a fact it happened almost dozens of times on Thor: Love and Thunder, where they had something completely finished in CGI, and then late in the game, a creator or a producer said, no, let's make it look like this. I mean, obviously, there's going to be interpretation and, you're going to change stuff the whole process that you're making a movie, because it's a fluid process, but decisions need to be made sooner.
Yeah.
That's my takeaway from this whole issue.
mean, I think there's a lot more to the issue. I think that's definitely a problem, but I think a lot of the times, especially, happening with video game development and stuff like this for the TV shows and the movies that all need visual effects, there's lots of there's extreme crunch time and the budget,
and that's never good.
So they don't, I think these budgets are usually made by people who don't understand what it takes to make these things. More often than not, they're made by, executives in a studio who aren't visual artists, who don't understand how long it takes, how many people it takes. I don't know. Maybe not. I'm not in those rooms. I don't know.
Like the best solution is to have visual effects artists in the room. That's so that they can communicate problems if they come up as they come up, not a day afterward.
Yeah, it's a whole issue.
But yeah, I think animation in general is growing. I think within 5 years, it's going to be a completely different landscape than what we're seeing
as
now.
It should. It shouldn't
I
be
hope it's
static,
better,
because then people would stop going to the movies. And they shouldn't, because movies are good, just like Nimona. Nimona was excellent, and everyone should go watch it. And then everyone should listen to this podcast. But if you're at the end here, then you have listened to this podcast. So good for you.
And with that, this has been a Shark Podcast.